I'll be honest, if I just randomly found this movie on like Netflix, I probably wouldn't have watched it. Even if I do like Mark Wahlberg and Rose Byrne. But it just looks like your average family comedy. Not all that compelling. But I happened to watch the Joe Rogan podcast with the director, Sean Anders. And he seemed like a really nice guy. And the story is sort of based on his experiences too. So it's not just some wacky comedy, it's got some truth behind it. And it's about this couple who's making a living flipping houses. And through a chain of events, they decide to adopt 3 siblings. 1 teenager and 2 younger kids, which is obviously gonna be a challenge. And the movie goes into a surprising amount of detail about the adoption process. And it doesn't shy away from showing the downsides of adopting either. You can also tell there's some personal experience behind it. It doesn't feel superficial or forced. But at the same time, this is still essentially a comedy. There's a comedic lean to almost everything, which does make it feel a lot less serious than it could. And unfortunately, it does border on getting wacky here and there. I mean, some of the stuff is obviously added for comedy and drama. This is by no means trying to be an accurate representation of the adoption process. But at the same time, it does take the subject matter seriously. So it's trying to do this delicate balancing act of keeping it funny and entertaining, while also keeping it somewhat grounded and based in reality. And I think it did a fairly good job with that, because it's pretty funny. But I also got emotionally invested, and believed that these 2, especially Rose Byrne as the mom, actually cared for the kids. But it didn't do a perfect job, and I definitely didn't end up loving this. It's got some weak parts to it. And one of the big things is the editing and the score, or the soundtrack. It could have been done better, because a lot of the time it makes it feel so cheesy. And most of that is on the score and the soundtrack. It's just not good. And it's actually pretty rare that a soundtrack is distractingly bad. Usually it's good, or you just don't pay much attention to it. But this one pretty much needed a complete overhaul. I liked basically none of it. It felt very dated and cheesy. And some of the editing played into that too. But it's mostly the sound, because editing-wise, the pacing is actually pretty good. This thing is almost 2 hours, which is a lot for a comedy like this. But it never dragged, and I really didn't pay attention to the time at all. So it definitely kept me entertained, and I did like it to some degree. I mean, it's a pretty harmless movie, with good intentions and a lot of heart. And a good message too. There's a lot of kids out there that need to be adopted. And I agree that adoption does make a lot of sense. And more people should probably consider it. But then again, I don't really think a movie like this is gonna convince a lot of people to do it. But who knows, it might. Maybe a few. And that's a good thing, so I can't hate on that. And based on the interview with Sean Anders, that's basically the point of the movie. To get the idea of adoption out there more. To make people at least a bit more aware of it. So that's all good, but as a movie, this isn't that amazing. It's a bit over the top and somewhat shaky here and there. But overall it does work and is perfectly entertaining. And kind of a feel-good movie too. But would I recommend it? I mean, sure, why not? But don't expect a masterpiece. So maybe watch it, maybe don't. I'm not your foster dad, but I am trying to sell out, so consider liking, subbing, hitting that bell and supporting me on Patreon. Because I really need to adopt a couple of teenagers. And hey, why not drop a comment below and check out another review? I'd really appreciate it. Thanks.